Hi, I'm Indi Young. I'm a design researcher. I'm interested in understanding people rather than the kind of thing that we've been doing up till now, which is really focusing on how people do things, the process. So what I do, I'm independent and I do this research, but I also teach it in online courses that are available worldwide. So we have a very inclusive community, and also write books, and also I speak. I am speaking at uxcon Vienna this year in October, yay! And I also make a lot of guest appearances that appear on my website. So there's a lot of materials out there. Also some books. So my website is a treasure trove of free material. So that's me. So what does UX research mean to me? The way I typically explain that is I call it software design research. I use the word software because some people who are not in tech need that word to orient. And then they realize, oh, this is about designing things that appear on our screens. But then I say design research and they're like, oh, what's that? And I say, it's listening to people. I get to listen to a lot of people. I get to see what their minds are doing as they're trying to accomplish their purpose. And I get to find patterns between what their minds are doing and what other people's minds are doing. And then when I explain that to people, they're like, wow, that sounds like it's really fun. And it is. What is the most important tool for user research? Is listening deeply. That is the foundation of everything. And the second most important tool is to frame your studies by a person's purpose. I just gave a keynote at UX Australia where I went into depth about the problems that we encounter when we don't listen, when we just ask surface questions such as, tell me how you did that, or how do you like this? What's your preference? What's your opinion? Without going to the depth of like, well, where did that opinion come from? Where did the preference come from? What built that up over time in your history? What went through your mind as you were doing this thing? What are all the pieces? Your inner thinking, your emotional reactions, your guiding principles, how you made decisions as you were trying to accomplish that purpose. And when we get to that depth, that is powerful. And over, people tell me how much better they have a grasp on where they need to take their solution that they're building after they get to that depth. So what interaction experiences have I had which have impressed me? And the short answer to that is that I really don't have any. None of them have been seamless and beautiful. What is the worst user experience of my life? The worst user experience is when I have to interact with things on a glass screen, period. The best user experiences are when I interact with humans, and all of the ways that I've found myself moving in the world and transacting economically has to do with the humans. I don't know how else to answer that question. I carefully did not say how much I swear at my computer every day. What are some examples of bad interactions? I classify the interactions as mild harm, serious harm, and systemic harm. An example of systemic harm is facial recognition software. Joy Buolamwini, way back when she was working at the MIT lab, was doing research with the facial recognition software, and she has dark skin. It would not recognize her. She has facial features of a female. It would not recognize her. She managed to write a paper that then became a bigger thing. She runs Algorithmic Justice League. It rolled up into a much bigger thing where now several cities around the world have canceled using facial recognition in their CCTV systems. And two companies, IBM and Microsoft, have pledged not to write that software anymore. So bias, it's a word that you feel defensive against. I'm not biased, but we're all human. We have brains that are wired very, very deeply to recognize patterns, and pattern recognition and assumptions based on those patterns are what have allowed our species to survive over the many, many centuries. So this happens in our brains automatically. It's not something we can stop. It's not something we're ever going to stop. However, our defense against it is awareness of what is coming out of our mouth after one of these pattern recognition and assumption things happens cognitively. What is coming out of our keyboard even, or when I do design research, what is coming out of the patterns? I need to make sure that those patterns represent what the data has to say and not the cognition that's going on up here. There's still cognition going on up here. This cognition is going on for everyone. And it's really important to just become aware. So yeah, in design research, there's a lot of different kinds of design that we do. And a lot of it that has been done is really looking at what are we making? That's called research in the solution space. This a solution is a product or a service or whatever we're making. And there's a couple of parts to it. We are not only coming up with the ideas, doing generative research to try to broaden our field of innovation, but also evaluative research, which is how well is this thing working for the person who's trying to get their purpose done. And the interesting thing is that when we focus on that, we refer to the people as users or customers or passengers or members or any noun that means someone who has a relationship to our org. And that's an important thing to bear in mind, because there's another part, which is a person who only has a relationship with their purpose, and they may reach out to a lot of different tools, one of which might be our solution. So that's called the problem space. And when we understand people there, what we're interested in is a much broader part of what is going through their mind as they're trying to get their whole process done, their whole purpose done. In between those two is something called a strategy layer. And the information from the problem space is what then we can add to our strategy layer. It helps us understand, well, who are the people? What are their thinking styles? Are we supporting one thinking style better than the other? And is that a good idea? Maybe it is. So that's going to go into our strategy. Or maybe it isn't, and we need to focus on another thinking style, and that's going to go into our strategy. We're going to understand all the little bits and pieces of what goes through people's minds as they're trying to accomplish this purpose. And we're going to say, well, is that part something we want to support? Or is that something we're not interested in supporting? Or maybe support it in 5 years. That goes into our strategy. And then also, how well are we supporting people in all of these different ways? We have strength, weakness analysis, we have gap analysis. And so we can try to understand where we need to go, not only based on our organization's priorities, but also on how well we are supporting a person getting their purpose done. Move information between this problem space and the strategy layer, and the strategy layer and the solution space. And how do we even move information from the solution space back to the strategy layer? One of the things for the first part, moving from the problem space into the strategy layer, is those tools that help us measure things. So do we have gaps between what we are intending to do and what people are trying to actually do or have as a part of their approach to their purpose? Are we helping them make progress? Are we helping them plan? Are we helping them in all aspects of it, even if they're procrastinating about it? There's a lot that goes into a person's purpose, and are we covering all of it? Do we want to cover all of it? Those are the kinds of metrics that we use. Also metrics with regard to, are we supporting all the thinking styles that we know of? And do we want to support all the thinking styles that we know of? Maybe it doesn't make sense to do it all. Or maybe there is an area that we can use as a future goal in another 10 years. Another type of metric is to actually take the information from the problem space to frame our studies in the solution space. So take a certain part of an approach to a purpose and a certain thinking style and use that to frame, say, a usability test, use that to frame a user interview, use that to frame the way we're doing some generative research, and then map it back to what we've done, the data we've collected from the problem space. I put it on something called an opportunity map. And then that opportunity map is something that carries this extra layer of how well we're doing with respect to supporting people, and we can see it change over time. We can see it start to improve, hopefully. So that's a little bit about how the solution space can map back to the problem space. At uxcon, I'm going to give a talk that covers a bunch of different things. I will talk about what it is to truly listen as well. Listening is the key. And one of the surprising ways, I may not get to this in my talk though, but one of the surprising ways that listening really helps is that I get a lot of people asking me, well, this is all really great and I believe it, but my stakeholders don't. So how do I persuade them? And you don't persuade somebody to believe in something that they don't see value in. Instead, you listen and you develop a relationship and you develop trust and rapport with this stakeholder, with each stakeholder that you work with over time. And what happens is they start trusting you back. And then your discussions together become more of a discussion than a one-way order giving. And when you are discussing, you are also seeing their point of view, and you can see their perspective more clearly and be more cognizant of what you are building together. So I can't wait to see you all at uxcon in October. I'm really looking forward to it. And there is the great opportunity to hear a bunch of other really amazing speakers as well. See you there.